What up, everybody? It's your boy Stokes, aka Stokes. Just coming in here with a video here. I wasn't able to do a video last week. My YouTube page got restricted for a week. I'm not sure why. I think it was because during my game with Prey last week, I guess I had the music going, so I just made sure I turned off the music for now on. So I'm not going to use it at all. And so hopefully my account doesn't get restricted again, because I think the next time it'd be for 2 weeks or something like that. So I really hate that about the game, that if you just have music going, that EA will flag it and do copyright infringement. I'm not sure how to get around that. So I'll just do it without the music by now. I mean, we all know all the music by now. But I will again talk about the divisions. I'll talk a little bit about their remaining schedule, how I think the division will play out, and I'll look at the playoff picture. And I think I may make a prediction or two. I haven't decided just yet, so I think I might, but we'll see how the video goes. All right, so we'll start in the AFC East. Very interesting division. It's been a really, really good one. And looking at it, you got the Jets there, 12-3, Bills at 11-4, and then you got the Dolphins at 11-5. So the Jets, they've got a plus 160 point differential, and they have the Buccaneers and the Bills left. So if Clerk there wins out, he's got Atlanta and the Jets left. If he wins out, I'm pretty sure he would get the division. I forgot to look at how the first game went. Although I did see it earlier, I just forgot how it went. And then you got Tony, who has clinched the playoffs, but I don't think he's got much of a chance for the division. Well, obviously, yeah, he doesn't have much of a chance for the division. He did beat Jarrell in their first game, so he would need to win his second game, and Jarrell would need to lose out, and then Clark would have to lose his game this week against Atlanta, which he won't because it's a computer, and then he'd have to win versus Jarrell in the last game. So, I mean, Tony doesn't really have much of a chance for the division now, but he as you see the X, he does have the playoff position locked. So one thing I found interesting about all three of these teams is they're averaging about 21 points per game given up. And in this game, it's really interesting and pretty admirable because defense is a really tough proposition in this game. And I think that's commendable that they're not giving up a lot of points. And I'll discuss a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper into a potential reason for that. But 21 points is 21 points. It's tough to play consistent and good defense in this game, no matter who you're playing. AFC West. So this ended up how I expected it to end up. I didn't think that deal would have the firepower in order to keep up with Ader. So, I mean, the division is how it is, and with the Broncos and Raiders tanking or just not being good, whatever, they were just not in the divisional race. So, Ader himself, he put together a stretch of 3 wins that are about as good as you could expect. I mean, he went through Eric Richardson, he went through Gas, and he went through Ramey. I thought he was going to take two out of those 3 losses for sure, but I mean, he put together a really good stretch of football, and I mean, hats off to him. He started out 2-4, won 10 straight. I can't really say much about the fact that he was playing well, and his offense is undoubtedly tough to stop. I think that it'll be interesting to see how things change up in the playoffs and what, if anything, teams do to try and slow him down. So whether they try to be a little bit more methodical when they have the ball, try to limit the amount of possessions that he gets, or once if he gets to the point where he has a turnover, so then he's behind the eight ball for a drive. Then what happens? Then how does he play? How does he get offensively and defensively? Does he get frustrated with the way someone defends him and he forces a pass that he shouldn't force? Then he gets behind the eight ball even more. So I think that the playoffs will definitely be a different breed, different game. He'll have to play a couple people that he hasn't played yet, and he'll be playing against the Afc East, who seem to have pretty good defenses. His wins against Gas and Eric and Ramey, those were really good ones. And I'll just touch on the bet for a little bit here. I thought that it was a good decision on Tef's part to dead the bet. I think that we don't really want to ruin the integrity of the game or of the league or how you're playing the game. I think it is awful to like purposely give up multiple touchdowns to a person just to try and get more stats. And when you put in a bet and attach it to season long things, that's where that's where you get to where it can be very murky. Like if they had just said, hey, we're gonna play our game week whatever, and then our bet is gonna be for that, or something along those lines, that would make sense. But as soon as this bet was made, when I am a commissioner, which I am not in this league, whenever I make a rule, I try and look at it from a way of how can this be manipulated? How can this be screwed with or messed with? I try to reverse engineer any rule that I can think of because, for the most part, we as people try to circumvent things and see how much we can go to the line without going over it. And I fully expected as the season wore down that they may not go as far as Ader did, which is like run committing and giving up passing touchdowns. I thought that they would possibly talk to their opponent, like, hey, whether it's on mic or whatever, say, hey, just let me get 1,000 passing, let me get 15 passing touchdowns. Let's just have a game where we just do nothing but pass deep touchdowns all game long. And at the end, when dude pays me, I'll give you $50 out of that. And that's what I was expecting maybe in week 17, 18 when they saw where the numbers were. But I'm glad that it got dead because it's just with as much money as it is, $500. I mean, some people may say it's not a lot, but $500 is $500. I mean, no matter what it is. If you think that Jeff Bezos wouldn't pick up $500 bills he saw on the ground, you're lying to yourself, because he got to where he was and is because he didn't let any money go. So it's $500, and I think that when you put that much money involved in a bet of any kind, people are going to do what they can to win the bet, especially when there are things that they can do that are in their control. So I'm glad that the bet has been deaded. And for the record, I would have fully expected Gas to pay the money had he lost it. I think he would have cried and moaned about it for a little bit, but he would have paid it. He would have done what he did, which was make the posts about him screwing things over, and I think that Gas probably would have done the same, and then we would have saw the last 4 weeks of the season dudes throwing for 15, 20 touchdowns a game because they're just taking turns letting the other person score and then going. So it just adds a whole lot of awful stuff to a league that we all love here. So it is what it is as far as that goes, and I don't really have a lot more to say. I mean, I guess I can talk about it if anybody ever wants to talk about it, but I'm glad that part is over, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how things go if they happen to meet in the playoffs, because I think that we all want to see that. We all want to see how they're going to go in the playoffs and whether they'll put any money up on that game. Because the playoff football in Madden or anything is quite a bit different than anything else, because you have the drives and possessions mean a little bit more. You're also playing against good players. It's not like you're going to face, the same guys you're beating by 55 points in the playoffs. You're playing against good people, and all those types of games come down to coin flips. And if you give up a possession here and there, they can really turn a game, especially when defense is as difficult as it is. So the Chargers are in prime position for a bye. They can get it. They will need I think they'll need gas to lose out. I think they'll need gas to lose out or lose one of their last. And they'll also need the Jets to lose one of their two. Yeah, so 9-2. Yeah. All right, so I mean the division is done and over with, and that'll be the case there. Going to the AFC North, you have Pittsburgh. So he'll just need gas to lose 1 out of 2, because he has 3 losses to the 4 that the Chargers have. Gas has Cleveland and Baltimore left. I would expect that he's going to win the week 18 game against Baltimore, because Watts is down. But I mean, Watts could come up for that game knowing what it could mean, knowing that he could screw Gas out of a bye. So also he could also lose his game to Wilson here in week 17. So those are his last 2 games against people that could potentially beat him, but we'll see. I think that he's still. I would expect that he's going to win the division. I mean, not the division. I'd expect that he's going to win those last 2 games. But Wilson does have a good defense, and Wilson is in the playoffs. The other teams in the other 2 divisions, they don't really have much of an opportunity to win the division or win a wild card. He's got Pittsburgh and Cincinnati left, so Flo, I guess, could beat him in week 18. If Wilson loses his last 2 games and then Flo wins his last 2 games, then that would, I think that would probably catapult the Bengals if that were to happen. So, I mean, it could come down to that week 18 game, but I would expect that when it comes down to that last game, that Wilson's going to step up for that victory there. A couple things I wanted to note about the AFC East. Their point differentials are pretty good. You've got the Jets point differential 160, Bills at plus 256, and the Dolphins at plus 149. And then in the AFC North, you've got the Steelers at 236, and then Cleveland at 182 plus 182. And in the West, the Chargers at plus 228. So those are really good point differentials averaging. I think those are really good indicators of how well you're playing as a team and whether you're able to play pretty good offense and defense. I think in Ader's case, his offense is just pretty overwhelming in what he's able to do to affect games. And then you got your opponent trying to catch you if you get behind a score or 2. And then it just avalanches that way. Because once you get 1 turnover, if you get 1 turnover, and then you turn that into 14, then your opponent will continue to try and press a little bit, and that's essentially what happens. Then they, or unless they'll just give you up a touchdown, then that's that. AFC South here. Now, the Jaguars are going to win this division. Everyone in the division has a negative point differential. I think this might have been the case when I looked at it earlier in the season. So that has been holding true here. And the Jaguars are going to win the division there. They've got it clinched already. Minus 57 in the point differential. Their point differentials aren't huge. They're less than 100. So, I mean, it's not like these people are all getting blown out. They're just losing these games here and there, 4, 6, 7 points here and there, and it'll just add up to the point differentials that you're seeing. So Splash, he's gonna get in there, and he's got an offense that can be pretty tough to stop at times. He's got a pretty good passing game. He knows how to attack the levels, and that's a good thing when you're in playoff football. And as we see, depending on the matchups, how they go, we'll see who he ends up with. He'll have a home game in the playoffs. So then, once we're looking at those home games, and I forget what the momentum swings are for Duval and all that stuff. So momentum can play a big part in the game, and we'll see who he's matched up with, and then how that plays out. So now we'll go up to the NFC East. This has been a really good division to watch. The Cowboys ended up playing the Giants again, and they beat them, which was impressive. So they have the season sweep. So all he has to do is win one of his last 2 games here, and he will have the division locked up. The interesting thing here is that Dallas has a point differential of plus 96, and just like earlier in the season, the Giants have a huge point differential. His point differential is plus 370. So, the Giants are really washing people when they're playing their games, except for the games against the Cowboys, which is pretty funny. I think it's also funny how when Ramey makes posts, he talks about how the Giants or the geriatric Giants sneak by someone. Final score 75-7 or something like that. I think that's pretty funny. He's definitely underselling his ability with his team, and whether they're all old or whether some of them are old, whether they'll be all right. I mean, we're just playing for this season right now. We don't really know how things are going to look 2 or 3 seasons down the road. So we're just playing for this season, and he's been playing very well. And I think that plus 370 is, it's by far the highest in the league. So the next closest is Eric with the Vikings with plus 258. So that is 112 points better than the next closest. But, in his games against 3 playoff foes, he's taken L's. So the divisional games, he lost to the Cowboys, and then he also lost the game to the Chargers. So the people that he might potentially see in the playoffs, he has lost to. I'm pretty sure he's also played a few other of the playoff teams who are not in his division. So it's possible that it's just those matchups. But that is an important, very, very important factor when you're talking about the playoffs, is the matchups. I could have someone's number and they can not have beaten me in 20 years, and I can play someone else that this person knows how to beat, and it's just better off that way for them. So it's just a matter of matchups and how your style meshes with your opponent, in one game samples. So we'll see how the matchups go, and I think that he will probably be, in my opinion, the favorite in each of the games that he plays. I think that his offense and defense are ready to build and play right now, and I would probably take him in most of the games. I know that he has stated that since the patch that he hasn't been doing as well and all that, but he also just won his last game 63-13, so you can only take so much of that with a grain of salt. Cowboys, they have a huge game with me, but he's got the Eagles in week 18, so he's got to win one of those 2, and I would love to win one of my final 2 in order to put myself in a position to win the division, but we'll talk about that when we get to my division, which is right now, actually. NFC West, it's been such an interesting season. Started off pretty well. I think that we as a division are having a lot of fun with it. It's been great going back and forth and making sure I pay attention to each of my opponents or my division mates' games to ensure that I'm in a position where I can win my division. And I'm atop it with 2 weeks to go. I have the Cowboys to go, and I also have Seattle to go. So, speaking of Seattle, they have won 5 out of 6 games, and it seems like when Zuckerberg sent Coach Prey in the timeout at the correctional facility, he's just been sitting around doing his bid, playing his games, and winning games. So maybe that and the patch were the best thing for him. But I mean, there's no mistaking that he's doing well. He's turned things around with his team, and he's got an important game coming up with me in Week 18. And if I can win my game versus the Cowboys, I think that it may help him a bit. I think I may not have to go as hard for the win as I would need to if I don't win that Week 17 game. But I mean, after how our first game went, I'm fairly certain that I'm going to try my best to win that game. And the Rams and the Niners, the Rams have the Baltimore Ravens in Week 17, and then they play the Niners in Week 18. So that last game is going to be really, really important for both of them. The Niners have the Texans and the Rams, so it's entirely possible that they'll both be 10-6 going into that game. It's possible that all three of us could be 10-6 going into that game, and we'll have no idea how the division is going to turn out because I split with the Rams, I split with the Niners. So when we look at how the tiebreakers work, it's Madden, so you can't bank on anything, honestly. So as it stands, 7-3. So if I win my last game against Prey, that would put me at 8 NFC wins to 4 NFC losses if I lose to the Cowboys. So naturally, you would think that would dictate that I would win the division, but it's possible that if the Rams win Week 18, they'll be 4-2 in the division and have a split over me, and they could win the division from there. So I just don't know what tiebreaker Madden will use, and that's going to be the determinant factor in how the division is going to play out. So we'll see how that goes as far as that goes. But I can end all of that by winning my last 2 games. And if one of these people lose both of their games, it could allow for Prey to make it into the playoffs, I believe. So if the Rams or Niners lose their Week 17 game, if the Rams lose this week, Prey should become a big fan of the Niners because he would have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Or he can just hope for them to both lose their Week 17 game. That way, it wouldn't even really matter who wins or loses that game because he would have the opportunity to make the playoffs. I don't think it's possible. Well, no, it's impossible for all 4 of us to make the playoffs this season because when you have the NFC East, 2 players with 13 wins, then that just leaves the 3 of us with the opportunity to make the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's interesting. Aside from Strong, we have 3 other players with positive point differentials, and they're not really huge point differentials. Mine is plus 77. So in the games that I've been winning, they've been close. In the games I've been losing, they've been close. Been playing a lot of close football, and usually I tend to lean towards myself in those types of games because I've been in so many playoff games and so many close games, and I feel like I'm able to hold my composure in most situations. So I think that the close games will work in our favor, all of us in the NFC West, because we play so many of them. I think that'll lend towards good things for us in the future. So let's go to the NFC North. Not a whole lot to say here. Vikings 13-2. Point differential plus 258. So they've been they've been really good. I mean, there isn't a whole lot to say. Eric, since he got Aaron Rodgers, which I think was a really, really huge move before the deadline. The fact that he got Rodgers, gave up a wide receiver for it essentially. I think that was a gigantic move for the way this league is going to turn out because Rodgers, when Eric doesn't have a quarterback with the proper traits, it makes him a different player. So when he's able to get an X factor quarterback, it allows him to do a whole lot of things that he wasn't able to do when he had Derek Carr. So it made him quite a bit more dangerous. And I mean, aside from his game versus Ader, he's just been going in on people. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go with him. I think he's probably he's got the tiebreaker over the Cowboys. So as long as he wins his last two games, he'll have the first round bye in the NFC. But if he loses one of those last two, then it gives the Cowboys the opportunity to sneak up and get that bye. In second place, the Packers, they still have an opportunity to make the playoffs. They'll need to win out. And they have a game against Minnesota this week. So the new Packers owner, he's pretty good offensively. I think that he's going to be a problem in the future. The way he runs his offense is very difficult to stop. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in the future as far as not just his divisional games, but overall in the NFC, how things are going to look for everyone. And we'll end it out with the NFC South. Tef is still leading that division, still playing really good defense, giving up about 21 a game on average. Not scoring a whole lot, which will be interesting come playoff time. But he's 9-6. He's got the division locked. There's just no why there because they haven't finished the week out. But he's got the Jets and Carolina left this season in the regular season. And then we'll see how the playoffs look for them. So let's look at the divisions. A couple things I want to note. I think that it's going to be really, really difficult for anyone to be an undefeated team, just because Madden is wacky itself, and it's really difficult to play as many good people as you'll have to play in this league, and just always be on your A game every single time. I think that it is. I would be shocked if we have an undefeated team going through and finishing 20-0. I think it's going to be a big surprise, no matter who it is, whether it's Gas or myself or Eric or Self or Ader, whoever it is. I think that it's going to be really difficult to consistently have 20 games of Madden where you always you make enough plays and don't have anything wacky go against you. It's really difficult, and maybe that's not saying much because undefeated is undefeated. It shouldn't be expected that someone is going to go undefeated because it's difficult to do. But that being said, I would not expect it in this game of Madden where it can just be really, really wacky, and some games can get out of hand, and you don't really know what's going to happen. So let's talk about the favorites here. I think that in the AFC, you've got, I'd say the favorites are the Chargers and the Steelers. I think most people, maybe not even most people, a lot of people would consider the Steelers is probably the favorites going into the season. But now that the season is playing out, I think it's possible that the Chargers may be the quote-unquote betting favorite going into the playoffs, just because he has played three of the top players in the league, and he won all three of those games. It is undeniable, literally, to say that if we were betting men, or if this was like a sports book, that the Chargers would be the favorite team to win the AFC just because of everything that we're seeing from his offense, and then having the head-to-head win over the Steelers is also a factor. Now, that being said, in the playoffs, it'll probably be a different thing. It's not very probable that they're both going to go and pass 55 times in the game that they play. It's not probable that you'll see the Steelers pass the ball 15 times in the red zone when they have Derrick Henry. Not probable that you'll see that. So if they meet up in the playoffs, it's going to be a different game for sure. But going into it, it's hard to just say with 100% certainty that hey, the Steelers are going to win it. Now I'd pick the Steelers just because that's my dude, but I can't equivocally say that if someone said hey the Chargers are going to win the AFC, I can't say nah, you're dead wrong, because I mean I've doubted Ader more than enough this season, and got to give the man props for having the scheme in order to win games that he's won. But one thing that is of note, the AFC East, you never know with these guys. I think that if they're able to play the same defense that they've been playing all season, which is to say 21 points per game, if they're able to shut down a couple of these offenses here, it can make for a big time upset. And I think that the Jets are probably the most likely of those teams to do so, just because of I know Jarrell as a player. He has a good defense. He's won Super Bowls in 281, and he's won Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl playing against who we consider to be a pretty overwhelming offense. He beat DZ in a Super Bowl when no one gave him a shot. I didn't give him a shot. He's beaten DZ when he had the Colts, I think, and DZ had whatever team he had. So I didn't give him a shot of beating DZ, and he did that. So he is as game bred as if you're familiar with MMA terminology with Jorge Masvidal. So I could see it. I could see it. Him making a bit of a run with the Jets, and offensively, he's got players that are difficult to defend. So he's got Kyler Murray at quarterback, difficult to defend. Najee Harris at running back. He may not be quote unquote difficult to defend, but if he gets a little bit of a crease, he's 6'2", 240 pounds. He's going to fall forward for a few yards, and it makes everything else easier on the offense when you've got guys like that. Najee Harris, who can give you consistent yards. Let me see what time we at. 32 minutes. All right, not bad. And then at tight end, he's got Noah Fant. So you've got a mismatch in Kyler Murray, who can play action. Then he's around the edge. And then you've got Najee Harris. If you don't fall for the play, if you don't give up on the play action, he can get you 5-6 yards just falling forward. You got Noah Fant. Tight ends are really difficult to defend as it is. So he's difficult to defend. His wide receivers aren't fantastic, and Brandon Ayuk and Cordero, or I forget his name, Tony. I forget his first name. Sorry about that, Mr. Tony. So when you got that type of offense, which is difficult to consistently defend, and then his defense, if it's playing well, it could give a offense like the Steelers or the Chargers a run for their money. And when these really good offenses get taken in the deep water, that's when we're going to see where things go, because I've seen Gas melt down in games when he isn't able to get exactly everything he wants offensively, and I've seen. I can't say I've seen Ader melt down because I haven't watched too many of his games. Granted, the only games I've really watched are the ones that he won against guys that he beat, obviously. So when you see these offenses that are expecting 50, 60, 70 points, get them in the deep water where it's like you only got one possession this half, and you only got 7 points. It's like, wait a minute, I need to score more points. That's when things can be a little bit different. So we'll see how those guys deal with being taken into deep water if that's what happens, because it's entirely possible that one of them gets the ball first on Jarrell, scores in 2 plays. Jarrell has a short drive. He gets 3 and out, or has a weird thing happen on his first drive. They go out, score again, it's 14-0. Now Jarrell's behind the 8 ball, and that can change everything else about the game. So it's just really a matter of who gets a good start, who gets the early breaks, who gets the first break, the first turnover that's weird. I mean, all those things go into each game and can change the dynamic of the game, because you can play someone 50 times, and if you're evenly matched with someone, you can play someone 50 times and you can have 50 different results with 20 of them being blowouts, even though you could be evenly matched with this person, just because each game is different, and every time when things start to swing, an avalanche can come, and you just have each particular play is run down because of one guy doesn't get the right shed, one guy gets held up and runs into another player on his block, one guy has a moss animation and between 2 people. So many different things can happen in one singular play that when you have this type of thing going, it can be really, really interesting. And I think that I wouldn't put it past the Jets. If the Jets came out of the AFC, I would be partially shocked, like partially, but not as much as I would be if let's say Jacksonville, right? I don't want to begrudge Splashy here, because he's won, and he's won big in the league. So I'm not gonna say that he's terrible, but I would just be shocked given the style with Splash plays. I would be more shocked if he made it through than if Jarrell did. Just not taking shots at anybody, just giving my opinion there. And in the NFC, I think that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it's Eric, Self, and Ramey as the top 3 favorites in the NFC. I mean, I don't think that's not a shocking news to anyone at this point. I'm not playing consistently or well enough to be listed in those favorites, and it's not. It hasn't been my year so far. I think that I haven't put into this game enough that I want or need to remain as good as I have been over the past few years, and that's my own choice. That's my own fault, if you want to call it fault. But if I want to be as good as I know I can be, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more, and have to play a little bit better. So, we will see how things go as far as the NFC goes. I think that if I had to make a choice or choose a favorite right now, it's really difficult for me to choose against Ramey when I'm looking at the statistics, and maybe that's wrong of me to just depend on those. But he's got a really good team, and it's entirely possible that he could end up facing Eric in the second round. And then, if that's the case, we'll see how that turns out, and it's possible that he could end up having to face Eric and then Self, and then going about it that way. One thing I forgot to mention as far as the AFC East goes. I mean, they're playing a lot of good defense. That is true. But in the Jets, for the Jets' perspective, one thing that you can say to talk about their points per game is they've only played one non-divisional playoff team. That was the Jags. That's it for the Jets. So everyone else that they played, aside from the Bills and the Dolphins, everyone else they are not a playoff team. So maybe you can say they got healthy on those teams that are not very quote unquote good, helped their stats that way. The Dolphins, they played 3 non-divisional playoff teams, and they lost all 3 of those games. So they lost to the Giants, they lost to the Bucks, and they lost to the Jags. So that's why I have a little bit of a difficult time putting a lot of faith in Tony going too far. But he's been playing good defense, so it isn't as if he's just getting blowed out all the time. He's playing good defense. And then with Clark, the only non-divisional game he didn't even play or wasn't able to play. It was a fair sim with Taft. So with that being said, there are enough flaws in the AFC East's resume to state that it's possible that they would all lose their first games that they don't play against one another in the playoffs. I mean, it wouldn't be something that is a complete shock, but all that being said, if I see a AFC championship post and it's Jets Bills, I'd be rooting for the Bills, of course, because go Bills. But it wouldn't be something you could expect. You could see a line of thought that would get you there, because Clark he runs exotic defenses that allow for him to get some turnovers here and there, and Jarrell. I've spoken enough about Jarrell there, so. I think that the AFC Championship game that we're all expecting or all hoping for is the Steelers versus the Chargers, and we'll see who gets in the way of that. From the NFC, I think those top 3, as I mentioned, the Vikings, the Cowboys, and Giants are the top 3, and then after that, you can be as negligible as you like, whether you feel it's me or whether you feel it's the Rams or Niners or the Bucks, whoever you want to say after those 3. I guess it doesn't really matter. But I think it's also going to come down to a set of matchups, because if it turns out in a way that I don't think there's a way for Self to end up playing Ramey in the wild card, so that's good for them. So they could only meet in the second round, or any of those teams can meet in the second round, those top 3. I think getting that second, the top 2 seeds are obviously the ones that you really want, because you put yourself in a position to face teams that may not have played as well during the season. So I think that those 3 teams, I would put myself in there as far as a dark horse goes, just because of the fact that I have consistently played a brand of football that is playoff adjacent, I guess. I always try to grind games, and when I play someone in the playoffs and things get a little touchy as far as the possessions go, for the most part, I've been consistent enough to make the plays down the stretch to get myself into position to win those games. But that being said, I could play certain people, and then it gets to a track meet, and I'm not able to keep up. That's just really what it comes down to. It's all about those matchups and how things go with that. So I will look a little bit through. There isn't a whole lot about the stats that are really surprising to me as far as the leaders go. You'd expect Ayer to be leading in passing touchdowns. I think even without that 12 touchdown, 800-yard game that he got against Dale, I think as time wore on, he was going to end up winning that passing quote unquote contest, just because their teams are built differently. When you've got players that can get over top of defenses and just get you a touchdown on any given play, he's got John Ross who can do that. And it isn't necessarily about whether the guy is a good player. He's really, really fast, and because of that, there you go. He gets behind defenses much like Tyreek Hill does, although Tyreek Hill is actually good. Scotty Miller is probably a better example of that. So you got second place, Lamar. I don't think that even if we do this next season with with Eric with Rodgers the whole year, I still wouldn't expect him to be like at that 90 touchdown range, just because Eric he doesn't only go balls to the wall with the pass. He will run the ball if the situation or look is right on the defensive front. But I would expect that this is probably the top three that we'll see going forward. As long as they continue to do what they do passing wise, these are all the guys that have the type of offenses that will give them yards consistently. Ramey is third in passing touchdowns right now. I think he's got one game up on Rodgers. So there's not a whole lot to really talk about here. I mean, Burrow has done pretty well passing the ball this season. When we look at how things are going to go as far as the dev upgrades, then we'll see whether Burrow goes from star to superstar, or I'm not really certain. What you need is to have like I don't know what it is, top 4 in yards and touchdowns. So when you look at the guys that are already there, I would expect that Kellen Mond, he's going to go up to star just because of where he is as far as the yards go. But when you look at the touchdowns, he is down a little bit further. I know there's like a dev trait chart, but I don't know whether they still go with that anymore. So it's going to be negligible here. As far as rushing goes, Tony Pollard, over the last few weeks, he has jumped up and taken the rushing lead. I think he's got about almost 600 yards rushing in the past 2 games. So when Dirty got him, he started to use him quite a bit. And conversely, I think as the season wore on, I stopped using Chubb as much. But I think that Pollard probably will end up with the lead in rushing yards, I think. I stated in the last video that as long as I give my guy the volume, he would end up with the rushing lead, but it doesn't look like it'll be that way this season. So I still do have the rushing touchdown lead by quite a bit. But Chubb is still really, really ridiculous, and the rushing itself, there's just not a lot of people consistently running the ball, and that goes that way in the NFL in real life as well. The teams aren't running the ball because it's just as easy to get like a bubble screen or whatever at the line of scrimmage to get your guy 5 or 6 yards rather than hoping that you get the running hole to get you 5 or 6 yards. Receiving, speed, Debo, speed, Ridley, speed, Cup, speed, Diggs. So you get it. There's a lot of speed, and you got Marcus Green here, who I think that Eric ended up getting a couple dev games, I assume. So I would imagine he's going to trade this guy coming up pretty soon. People are going to see Superstar X Factor and be like, oh my gosh, let me trade for him. Let me trade a 2 first-round picks for him. When you expect to do what he does, and you can't. So don't fall for the okie doke, people. Speed. So as you can see, so much speed still at the top of the yardage marker here. Of course, the tight ends are nasty. Kittle, and Pitts, and Waller. I mean, those are guys that are just, as I stated earlier, tight ends are just a mismatch to stop. So still got Curtis Samuel averaging almost 40 yards a catch. I know earlier in the season was 50-something yards a catch, so he's been slacking quite a bit. There's other people with high yards per catch as well. Tyreek, averaging 33. A.J. Brown 32. Yeah. So defense. When I talked in the first video, I talked about how the superstars hadn't been getting a lot of sacks, and since then, in the top 10 or 15, the superstar players are now getting a few more sacks, which is good, but they're not really doing a whole lot more. I mean, usually when we've seen Maddens in the past, there have been guys with 20, 25, 30 sacks in a season, and that's not really the case right now. So the pass rush has been really, really interesting to see. Just to note that it's not really as effective as it had been in the past. So you got Manny Aguila with 15, Jalen Phillips with 15, Clowney 14 and a half. I think the Browns lead the league in sacks with like 50 something. Weird stat here. Kenny Moore, for some reason, 18 interceptions. I don't know how. When looking at his attributes, I don't understand it. 89 speed. Like he's not tall. He's not fast. He just has 18 interceptions. Let's look at his stats here. So in the 11 interceptions in the past 3 games, that is crazy. And prior to that, he wasn't really making any, consistently huge plays. But 11 interceptions in the last 3 games. That is really, really impressive. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm fairly certain. There have been no punt return touchdowns. I think that's probably going to be a consistent case. And punt return TDs are difficult to get. Kick return touchdowns, I think there's maybe 6 or 7 of them. You don't really see a lot of those either. Only 5. None of these guys are really fast. So Paris Campbell's fast. So I think that kick return touchdown might have been against me. Wouldn't doubt it. All right, so team stats here. So third down conversions was something that I looked at last time. I think there was like 20-something teams with a higher than 50% conversion rate. At this time, there are 16 or half the league at 50% or higher in third down conversions. One thing that I found really, really interesting here was since he got Aaron Rodgers, like his third down attempts have gone really, really, really low. So right now he's got 66 third down attempts in 15 games. So that's about 4.5 third down conversions or third down attempts per game. And he's converting those at 53%. So only, I'm not sure how many drives there are in a game or how many plays. Like only four times people stop the Vikings on second down. Like that's really, really impressive. And then you got the Giants who was leading last time. He's got 81 third down attempts. And then the Seahawks, whose offense obviously is doing pretty well, 84 third down attempts. When you look at the teams that are the fewest third down attempts, for the most part, they are good teams, as good / playoff teams. You got teams here and there. I think the Panthers have 100 third down attempts. And then I saw the Colts with 93, Titans with 88. So these are teams that are all having pretty good offensive schemes working, or they put themselves in a position where they're not losing a lot of yards in downs 1 and 2. So maybe their offense is predicated on getting a bunch of 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s to make it a little bit more difficult for someone to make a stop because they can't really bank on having to defend only something on whether it's a crossing route or a slant or a drag. You have to defend the entire field when someone's looking at 3rd and 2. You can't only bank on, hey, this guy's only going to go for a passing play here. And you got 2 teams at 60% third down conversions. So when you've got, as I previously mentioned with Jarrell, when you have a defense that is consistent and or good, and then you have an offense that's going to give you 60% of the third downs we're going to convert. That is really, really tough for a team to consistently do in the playoffs, and that's what another one of those factors that can make the Jets look like they are going to be a problem in the AFC. My team's third in the league in third down conversions. That's great. Hurrah. In fourth down attempts, when I looked at this earlier in the season, I think that Strong had like 19 or something fourth down attempts. I mean, since then, Watts has been going bananas with fourth down attempts. As far as turnovers go, so the Giants plus 39 in turnovers, plus 39. Dolphins plus 33, plus 23, plus 22. All these teams in the playoffs with these high turnover differential numbers. Now, these types of numbers are the difference between what wins and loses playoff games. If you give up an extra possession here and there, you're not going to be making a huge difference in the game if you're giving up an extra touchdown here and there. Because when defenses, I mentioned this before in the previous video, but when defense is as difficult as it is, when you're getting yourself 2 and 3 extra possessions a game, you put yourself in such a grand position to win a game, because the win probability, if they were doing that, it just rises higher when you give yourself extra possessions. And conversely, if you're not giving the ball away, you put yourself in a position that, okay, well, even if I don't score a touchdown here, I'm making my opponent have to drive, the entire field or drive a good way down the field in order to ensure that they're going to score on me. And you can just have faith in your defense that you will be able to get a stop, a 3-play sequence where you can get a stop here and there. I mean, there's just how these things go, and the possessions become so important in playoff games. And I would be shocked if you see someone that wins a turnover battle in the playoffs and they lose the game. I think it's just probably the first thing you can look at if you look at the stats for any of the playoff games, just because the possessions are so important. Taking the ball away, Giants leading the league. Dolphins, Steelers, Bills, go Bills. Browns, Jets, all these teams are just causing a lot of turnovers. Defensively, pass defense. So Tef is still leading the league in that. I mean, this game is a passing game. So when you see him leading the league in that, you have all these teams that are doing well stopping the pass. Those are the teams you would expect to do well overall. Wilson, he has 57 sacks, and he's leading the league in defense. He is going to be interesting to see how he plays in the playoffs, because he's a good player. His 9-6 record is not really indicative of the fact that he is a good player. Let's see. Yep, so we're talking about conversions. Penalties are not really of note. I mean, the Jets haven't been called for a single penalty all year. That's really interesting. There's not even one, not a false start, not a wayward pass interference penalty. That's really interesting there. We can look at the awards here for a quick moment. I mean, no one's going to show up here that we didn't really didn't know about, I should say. Mahomes, Lamar, John Ross, Chubb, expected. In the AFC, I mean, the guys that you expect, the guys that are doing well. I mean, Madden is a perpetually rich get richer game as far as awards go. The better you play, the more XP you get. So it is just a rich get richer game, and that's just how it works. Jamal Adams, he's really good. Can't really say much about that. Schwartz, as I mentioned previously, he is an anomaly. So, and Watts is throwing in the ball quite a bit. So he's going to be that leader in offensive rookie of the year. But he won't win wide receiver of the year this year because of John Ross. Jonathan Taylor's leading their running back of the year. They tend to lean towards touchdowns on the awards. That's why Chubb is still higher on the MVP list than Pollard, even though Pollard has more yards. Zoe Carter and the Steelers are playing two linebackers leading for linebacker of the year. And they have Rousseau. That's another Buffalo Bill. Go Bills. Kenny Moore, best DB. He's leading defensive player of the year as well. Rookie of the year, Trey Lance. Looks like he's going to beat out Kellen Mond for rookie of the year offensively. Let's see. Alright, so Tom Brady's leading best QB. Josh Allen, go Bills. I'm surprised that Aaron Rodgers isn't a bit higher on the best quarterback list here. But it's interesting that he's got both Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers on the list. I mean, he had Derek Carr for like the first 7 games of the season, I think, something like that. So I think that's all I need to mention as far as that goes. I will look at the playoff picture here, and if the season ended right now, these matchups look really, really good. I think Jorrell getting the bye, that would be interesting. So that tells Jorrell that all he has to do is win out, and he'll get the bye. So I mean, he plays, I think, the Bills and the Buccaneers in these last 2 games. He's got to win those games, and he doesn't have a game in the first round. And that's really important because what it could do, it could force a matchup of Gas and Ader in the second round. That's what it could potentially do if he were to win the bye. If someone else if Gas were to win the bye, he and Ader wouldn't face each other until the AFC Championship round. So the bye is pretty crucial here, I think, for Jorrell or Gas. Because obviously I think those guys want to face each other, so I think that's it doesn't really matter when they play each other, it's the matter that they do actually play one another. And that's to say if Wilson isn't to beat Gas, or if Tony isn't able to beat Ader there. Then of course the Jags and the Bills. So if this was starting right now, I would take the Bills in this game. Go Bills. And I mean it's hard for me to pick against the Chargers and the Steelers in those wild card rounds. I mean, come on. I've got respect for Tony. I think Tony is. It's been really weird this whole season having Tony in Facebook jail, but I couldn't pick him against Ader right now. I mean, and I would assume that they would both respect that. And Gas is my dude, so I'm not gonna pick against him there. So that second round matchup, if he were to play Ader, then that would be really, 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 really fun. And I think it'd be really cool to see if they had to play in the second round. So moving towards that, if it were to end up that way, I wouldn't, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets in the AFC Championship round. And in this scenario, Jorrell could end up in the AFC Championship round having not played one of the AFC playoff teams outside of his division. Because if the Bills win this game, the Bills would go to the second round and face Jorrell, the Jets. So he could get to the AFC Championship round without having had to see anyone, and having had to try and defend them. So it could be an AFC Championship round of Jorel versus Gas there, and I would like to think that Gas could stay solid enough to not focus on trying to put up a bunch of points. He stopped trying to, or not try to use Lamar in a crazy way. That's an important thing to know with any Lamar user. Like when you have Lamar, that's when you do really crazy things sometimes, and you try and force things that you don't really need to. And Lamar is just a ridiculous player. When we look at the NFC, I think that all those matchups are interesting. I think that Ramey did play Tef this season already. I forget the score of that game. As I said, I did split with Strong, and these two guys, I don't think they have played. So if they had to play, I'd take myself, of course. I would take Ramey here, and I would expect for Self to beat Miles. Side note, we haven't seen much from Mr. Miles since his live video. I think after Strong got on him, and then after he won a game, he made another post. I mean, come on, if you're gonna make only posts when you're winning, that's just lame for the most part. I think, like, just keep the same energy when you're winning and when you're losing. You don't have to make a live video, of course. I mean, that's not really an expectation. But if you're only gonna show up and make posts when you win, what's the point in that? I mean, that's just lame. But to each their own, and however they want to do things, they do things. I just don't. I think that's where the main issues come from, is when the energy is only one way under one circumstance. But NFC West is lit, so I love it. I love it. And we'll see how these last 2 weeks work out. I think that the NFC West is going to put 3 teams out there, and we'll see how we go there. I don't think there isn't a way to avoid a wild card matchup of NFC West foes, because the number 5 seed is already locked away with the loser of the NFC East. So if me and Self win our games, and if things hold as it is, I would end up facing Self in the second round, and then Ramey would be facing E in the second round divisional. And I don't really know what to make of my game with Self. I mean, this game that he and I play today, I think, will have a little bit of a bearing on the next game, because we could be playing twice in a matter of 3 or 4 days. So that will be interesting. I just like it noted, by the way, Saturday I will probably not have a lot of availability. Just want to make sure I note that for all of you before we get to the playoffs. If y'all hounded me to play on Saturday, I do not think I'll have a lot of availability. So keep that in mind. All right, so I'm gonna call the Super Bowl. I'm not even gonna pick myself, even though I like my chances against anybody. I'm not even gonna pick myself in this scenario. I am gonna say Eric versus Ader. How about that, guess? Eric versus Ader in the Super Bowl, and in that matchup, Richardson is going to win that game. Hat tip to E for picking me in the other league, so I return the favor. I'll pick you in this one. So Vikings win the Super Bowl 47-44 on a field goal late in the game, and then Ader has like 1 or 2 plays in order to get it, and he throws an interception. It's a lot of detail. Anyway, this has been another fun video to do. Ended up an hour and 9 minutes. I think that's a little bit shorter than the first one. So I hope so. I don't really have too many parting shots. This has been really fun to do, and I will probably try and do it weekly on Wednesdays. Wednesdays really they work well for me to do these types of things. So although I may try to do another one right around the playoffs time. It just really depends on when we get to the playoffs and how much time I've got. But this first season has been really fun. I think that we don't even remember that we were sitting in a holding pattern for almost a month or a month plus, and the energy has returned as I imagine Tef expected that it would, even though we had to wait. So I think that in the beginning it was probably a mistake to wait until this month, a month in or over a month in to start the league, and I don't think that the scouting things it looks cool, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. But at the same time, the energy has remained as it was expected to be, and I'm hoping that this. The playoffs are as fun as the regular season is, and I mostly hope that Tony gets out of jail before the playoffs, so we can have a live video of him after he has his first round game. Because if he beats Ader in that first round, I need for there to be a live video. Maybe he needs to go live with the Jamrock the Jamrock page, have it join the league so he can be live after that game, because we really need that Tony energy, and it's not going to be 2-1 until he's got that energy in his lives. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. Stokes, aka Stokes. Shout out to Dirty. What up?